The first time Commander Elias saw her, he forgot how to breathe. She stood near the observation window of Horizon 6, a massive orbital station that floated quietly above Jupiter's swirling clouds. The orange storms below reflected off her silver skin, making her look like a spirit made of light and wind. Her name was Lyra, a scientist from the alien race known as the Zyari, a people of beauty, calm, and logic. Most humans found the Zyari cold. They didn't smile, they didn't laugh, and they didn't show emotion. They lived for reason, not for heart. But there was something about Lyra that felt different. She stood still, but her eyes carried curiosity, like she was silently asking the stars questions only she could understand. Elias had met many aliens before, but none had ever made him feel this quiet. He was a soldier, trained for war, not for wonder. Yet when he walked past her that day, her voice stopped him. "You stare at the storms as if you could calm them," she said softly. Her voice was unlike anything he'd heard. It wasn't sound, it was music, a vibration that moved through his chest like wind through glass. He smiled awkwardly. "Maybe I'm just trying to find peace in chaos." She tilted her head, her silver hair catching the light. "Peace is not something humans are known for." That made him laugh, and for a moment she looked surprised. The sound of laughter seemed strange to her ears. Her people did not laugh. They sang when they felt joy, but it was soft, restrained, almost hidden. Yet when Elias laughed, something inside her seemed to change. Her lips curved slightly, uncertain, like she was trying to mimic what she saw. And that was how it began. The next few weeks passed quietly, but Lyra and Elias kept meeting, sometimes by chance, sometimes not. He found reasons to visit the Zyari science wing. She found excuses to walk past the human mess hall. They would stop, talk, and share pieces of their worlds. Elias learned that Lyra had never been to Earth, but she read about it often. She said humans fascinated her because they lived with such fire, such emotion. "You build cities just to see them fall," she said one day. "You fight for freedom even when freedom hurts you." Elias chuckled. "That's humanity for you. We love too much, fight too hard, and dream too big." Lyra lowered her gaze. "My people say emotions are weakness." He looked at her gently. "Then maybe weakness is what makes us real." For a moment she didn't reply. Her glowing eyes studied him as if she was trying to understand something she had never seen before. Finally she whispered, "You humans are strange. You live so little time, yet you act as if you'll last forever. Maybe that's what makes it worth living," he said quietly. One night he found her again at the window, staring at Jupiter's storms. "You always come here alone," he said. "I like to listen," she replied. "Your station hums. The energy moves through the walls, through me. It feels alive." "And what do you hear?" he asked. She turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly. "I hear fear, but also hope." Elias stood beside her in silence. The universe outside was endless, black, cold, and silent. Yet standing there with her light brushing against his shoulder, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Warmth. "Lyra," he said after a while, "do your people ever love?" She blinked. "Love?" The word sounded strange on her tongue. "Yes," he said softly. "It's when you care about someone more than yourself." Lyra looked away, her face unreadable. "We do not love as you do. We are born to serve balance. Emotion leads to chaos. But what if chaos is beautiful?" he asked. She turned her eyes to him again, and for the first time he thought he saw a flicker of emotion, like light trembling inside her. "You speak of things I was told not to feel," she whispered. "But when I stand beside you, human, I wonder. Maybe they are wrong." That night after he left, Lyra stayed by the window, her hands pressed against the cold glass as she watched the storms twist below. For the first time in her life, her heart, if her kind even had one, beat faster. She whispered to herself in her own language, "Elias." His name shimmered like a melody in the air, and though she didn't understand it yet, that single whisper was the beginning of something forbidden and eternal. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet connection between Elias and Lyra began to grow like light, finding a path through the dark. The humans on Horizon 6 started whispering about them. Some joked that the commander had fallen for a shimmer girl, while others warned him to be careful. The Zyari didn't feel emotions the way humans did. But Elias didn't care what anyone thought. Every time he talked to Lyra, he felt like he was hearing the universe breathe. Lyra's world was logic, order, and endless rules. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, and full of mistakes. And yet she found herself drawn to that chaos. She liked how Elias spoke about things that made no scientific sense: love, courage, faith. One afternoon she found him in the repair bay, fixing a drone with his hands covered in grease. "You always use your hands," she said, watching curiously. He smiled. "Hands have feeling. Machines don't. Your people love to touch things," she said softly. "To hold, to comfort. We do not." "Then maybe that's what makes us human," he replied, tightening a bolt. "We need to feel the world to believe it's real." She tilted her head, thinking, "And what if touching hurts?" He looked up at her then, his brown eyes warm but sad. "Sometimes it does, but sometimes that pain reminds us we're alive." Later that week they were assigned to a joint mission, testing the wormhole stabilizer. It was a powerful energy gate that could connect distant star systems. For the Ziyari, it was a scientific masterpiece. For humans it was hope, a bridge to the unknown. They spent long hours working together side by side, surrounded by light and humming energy. Lyra moved with precision and calm, while Elias worked with instinct and emotion. They were opposites, yet somehow they fit perfectly. During one of their night shifts, as the lab glowed in soft blue light, Elias handed her a small metal object, a human trinket. "What is this?" she asked. "A coin," he said, smiling. "It's old. My father gave it to me for luck." "Luck?" she repeated, confused. He nodded. "It means believing in something good even when there's no reason to." She looked down at it carefully. "Your kind trusts the unseen. That is dangerous," he grinned. "Yeah, but that's what makes us brave." Something inside her stirred. She closed her glowing fingers around the coin. "Then I will keep it. To remember bravery." Elias felt a warmth spread through him. It was a small thing, like a coin, but it meant she was trying to understand him, to feel as humans do. And that meant everything. Days later, while working together near the viewing deck, the conversation turned quiet and deep. "Elias," she said suddenly, "why do humans always risk their lives for others?" He thought for a moment. "Because we can't stand doing nothing while someone suffers. It's not in our nature." Lyra frowned. "My people would call that illogical. If one life endangers many, we sacrifice the one." Elias looked at her gently. "But what if that one is someone you love?" She froze. The word love always made her chest tighten. It was a feeling her kind had no name for, a storm of warmth and fear, of wanting to stay close even when you shouldn't. "I don't understand love," she whispered. He smiled sadly. "Maybe not yet, but I think you feel it, Lyra. You just don't know the word for it." Her glowing eyes trembled. "When you look at me, my energy becomes unstable. I lose focus. My pulse changes." "Is that love?" Elias chuckled softly. "Sounds like it." She turned away, trying to hide her glowing cheeks. "Then I am frightened of it." He nodded. "So am I, but that's what makes it real." That night, Lyra couldn't rest. The idea of love echoed in her mind. Her people believed emotions were dangerous. They clouded judgment, weakened the spirit. But when she thought of Elias, she didn't feel weak. She felt alive. She walked alone to the observation deck. Jupiter's storms twisted below, wild and endless. She touched the small coin in her hand and whispered, "Bravery." Her reflection in the glass flickered, a mix of alien and human light. For the first time, she wondered if maybe her destiny was changing, pulling her toward something forbidden but beautiful. When Elias found her there, she turned and smiled faintly. "You once said chaos can be beautiful," she said. He nodded. "I still believe that." She took a slow step closer, her voice soft as starlight. "Then maybe I am beginning to believe it too." He looked at her, heart racing. "Careful, Lyra, you sound almost human." She laughed, really laughed, for the first time. The sound was fragile, pure, and filled the room with warmth. And in that moment, he knew, whatever this was, friendship, connection, or something deeper, it was no longer just science or curiosity. It was something worth risking everything for. The peace on Horizon 6 didn't last long. The stars outside the window still shone beautifully, but trouble was coming, quiet, invisible, and deadly. It began with a faint hum deep within the station's core. The engineers called it minor energy disturbance. The Ziyari scientists didn't worry. Their calculations were always perfect. But Elias felt uneasy. He had spent too many years in space to ignore his instincts. Something wasn't right. For days, he couldn't shake the feeling that the air itself felt heavier, as if the station was holding its breath. Lyra noticed it too. She found him one evening in the control room, staring at the energy readings with tired eyes. "Your pulse is fast," she said softly. "You sent something?" He nodded. "Yeah, I've seen patterns like this before." "Before explosions?" She looked at the screen, glowing numbers reflected in her silver eyes. "Our calculations are stable. It should be impossible for the system to fail." He glanced at her. "Impossible doesn't mean safe, Lyra. Machines don't care about promises." For a moment she said nothing. Her people believed in logic above all, but now, after knowing him, she had started to believe in something else. Instinct. 2 days later, disaster struck. It happened without warning. A solar flare, huge and violent, roared from the nearby sun. The wave of radiation slammed into the station's shields, overloading every system in seconds. The alarm screamed. Red lights flashed across every corridor. The once calm station became a storm of chaos. Warning: shield failure! Reactor instability detected. Elias ran through the smoke-filled hallway, heart pounding. Sparks rained from the ceiling as the floor trembled beneath him. He shouted into his communicator, "All personnel to the escape sectors. Evacuate now." But when he reached the Ziyari lab, his blood turned cold. The ceiling had collapsed. Glass panels were shattered, machines were burning, and Lyra was trapped under a heavy beam, her silver glow dimming. "Lyra!" he yelled, rushing to her side. Her eyes flickered weakly as she tried to move. "Elias, you shouldn't be here. The radiation levels—" "I don't care," he shouted, trying to lift the beam. "Hold on!" He pushed with everything he had, his muscles screaming in pain. The heat burned his skin, but he didn't stop. Finally, with one desperate cry, he rolled the beam aside and pulled her out. Her body was trembling, her energy flickering like a fading flame. "You're hurt," he said, cradling her in his arms. "I'll heal," she whispered faintly. "You must go," he shook his head. "I'm not leaving without you." Together, they stumbled through the collapsing corridor. The walls cracked and flames licked the air. Lyra tried to stabilize the energy field with her glowing hands, sending waves of blue light through the panels. But she was weakening fast, the wormhole gate. "It's unstable," she gasped. "If it collapses, it will destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers." Elias stopped. "Then we fix it." She looked at him, her voice trembling. "The only way to stop it is to channel a living energy source, strong enough to balance the overload." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said softly, "someone must merge with the core." He froze. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't," she whispered, looking into his eyes. "Elias, you are human. You cannot survive it, but I can." He grabbed her shoulders. "Lyra, no! I just got you. I can't lose you now." Her glowing hand touched his face gently, calming him for a moment. "Elias, your people burn bright and short. My kind endures, but we forget how to feel. You gave me something I never had, a heart." Tears stung his eyes. "Then don't take it away," she smiled sadly. "If I must choose between life without feeling or death with meaning, I choose meaning." Before he could stop her, she stepped toward the reactor room, her body glowing brighter with every step. The light grew until it filled the entire corridor, painting the smoke with silver fire. "Lyra!" he shouted, running after her. But the heat was too strong. Through the blinding light, he saw her turn one last time. Her voice echoed, soft and full of love. "You taught me bravery, Elias. Now I will teach you forever." And then, the explosion came, a flash of blue-white energy that lit the stars themselves. When Elias woke up later in the medical bay, the station was silent. Half of Horizon 6 was gone. He was alive, but she wasn't there. Only her coin, the one he had given her, rested in his palm, warm with faint silver light. He closed his eyes as tears slipped down his face. The woman of light had chosen him, and then chosen to save him, and her last words echoed endlessly in his heart. "I am yours, human." The days after the explosion were a blur of silence and smoke. The mighty Horizon 6, once bright and full of life, was now a broken shadow floating in the endless black. Only fragments of the station remained, drifting like ghosts among the stars. Commander Elias was found unconscious inside an escape pod, his body burned, his breathing weak. The recovery team pulled him out and carried him aboard a rescue ship. When he woke up, the first word he whispered was her name. Lyra. But no one answered. Doctors told him he was lucky to be alive. The energy blast should have killed everyone near the reactor, yet somehow his pod had ejected seconds before the final wave. They didn't know how it happened. He did. He knew. It was her, Lyra. The memory burned in his mind. Her glowing figure walking into the storm, her soft voice saying she would teach him forever. He stared at the window of the medical bay for hours, watching the stars drift by. His body healed, but his heart didn't. The universe felt empty now, too quiet, too cold. The woman of light who had taught him how to feel was gone. Weeks later, Earth's High Command called him back. He was honored as a hero of the Horizon mission, the man who survived the wormhole disaster and prevented the destruction of the entire fleet. But he didn't care about medals or speeches. At the ceremony, people clapped. Cameras flashed. He stood there in his uniform, a hollow man smiling for the world. When the ceremony ended, he walked away alone. He carried the small silver coin she had kept, the one that still faintly glowed whenever he touched it. It had survived the explosion just like him. He never understood how. That night he sat by the sea on Earth, the waves dark and endless. He could almost hear her voice in the wind. "You taught me bravery, Elias." His hands trembled as he held the coin to his chest. "And you taught me love," he whispered back. Months passed. The human world moved on. They rebuilt what was lost. The Ziyari scientists helped design a new version of Horizon 6, stronger and safer. Together, the two species decided to name it the Bridge of Light, a symbol of unity between logic and emotion, between their two worlds. At the center of the new station, they built a memorial, a floating glass garden where names of the lost were written in silver light. And at the top, glowing brighter than all others, was one name, Lyra of Zia she chose love and saved. Two worlds Elias stood before her name when the new station opened. His reflection shimmered on the glass. Around him, people spoke softly, placing flowers, whispering prayers. But for him, it wasn't just a monument. It was a grave and a promise. He touched her name gently. "You're still here," he murmured. "Somewhere out there, you're still watching." A young Ziyari scientist beside him bowed her head. "Your story with her changed many of us," she said softly. "Our kind. We never understood humans before. But now we try. We talk, we feel. She showed us it isn't weakness." Elias smiled sadly. "She was stronger than all of us." That night, he stayed alone in the observation deck, the same place where they used to stand. The stars shimmered across the black sky. For a moment, he thought he saw a faint flicker of silver light far in the distance. Soft, warm, moving gently like her glow. He knew it couldn't be real. It was probably just light from a passing satellite, a trick of the eye. But still his heart whispered, "Lyra." He closed his eyes, and the memories came back. Her laughter, her questions about love, the way her fingers glowed when they touched his hand. It hurt to remember. But he didn't want to forget. She had changed him forever. Before her, he was just a soldier. After her, he was something more. A man who understood what it meant to love beyond reason, beyond time, beyond even death. As he drifted into sleep, his hand still held the coin. Its light flickered faintly once, twice, and then grew stronger, glowing softly like a heartbeat. He didn't see it. But in that glow, something moved. A small pulse of energy, silver and alive. Far away, somewhere beyond the edge of human reach, the wormhole stirred again, and in that endless ocean of stars, a faint voice whispered through the dark, carried by light, carried by love. "I am yours, human." Years passed, but Elias never stopped hearing her voice. It came in dreams, soft, distant, almost like a whisper in the wind. Sometimes when he looked at the stars, he could almost hear her say it again, "I am yours, human." But he always woke up alone. Elias had grown older now. His hair had turned gray, his hands slower, but his eyes still carried that same spark, that same fire she had loved. He no longer commanded ships. Instead, He worked as a teacher at the Stellar Academy, training young explorers to travel safely through the stars. Yet even after all these years, one part of him still lived in that moment, the day Lyra had walked into the light. He still wore her coin around his neck, tied with an old string. It was his only treasure, and every time he touched it, it glowed faintly, a reminder that maybe somewhere out there, she still existed in some form. One evening, while walking through the Academy's observatory, a young cadet ran up to him. "Sir, you might want to see this." The cadet handed him a data tablet, showing an energy reading from the Jupiter Gate, the same wormhole Lyra had died protecting years ago. Elias frowned. "That gate's been closed for years." "It's dead." "Yes, sir," the cadet said nervously. "That's why we're confused. It's reactivating." Elias' heart skipped a beat. "Show me the signal." The cadet opened the file, and a strange sound filled the room. It wasn't static. It wasn't machine noise. It was a soft melodic hum, the kind only a Ziyari could produce. Elias froze. That sound, he knew it. He would know it anywhere. It was her voice. His fingers trembled as he whispered, "Lyra." The cadet looked at him confused. "Do you recognize it?" Elias swallowed hard, his eyes misting. "Yes, more than you can imagine." Within days, he was back in space, older, slower, but determined. The Federation approved a research mission to study the sudden reactivation of the wormhole. Elias volunteered to lead it. "You're sure about this, Commander?" asked Admiral Terran. Elias nodded. "I owe it to someone." The new ship, Solara's Dawn, set course for Jupiter. As the giant planet filled the view, memories came rushing back. The station, the explosion, her laughter, her silver eyes. He closed his hand around the glowing coin. "If you're out there, Lyra, give me a sign." The moment they entered orbit, the ship's systems began to flicker. Lights dimmed, and the communication deck filled with strange frequencies, not random but rhythmic. "Almost like speech. Can you translate it?" Elias asked the crew. One of the technicians nodded slowly. "It's a repeating signal. It's saying something." "What?" The technician hesitated. "It says Elias." "Elias, hear me." Everyone on the deck fell silent. Elias felt his heart stop. The voice, even distorted by static, was hers. He moved closer to the screen, his throat dry. "Lyra, Lyra, if that's you, answer me." There was silence. Then a faint hum, followed by words broken by static. "Energy. Lost. Rebuilding. Not dead. Waiting." Tears filled his eyes. "You survived," he whispered. The crew stared in shock. "Sir, is that possible?" He turned toward them, his voice firm but full of emotion. She was energy when she saved the station. She merged with the gate's core. Maybe part of her consciousness, remained trapped inside the wormhole. "She's been trying to reach out, all these years." The technician looked uncertain. "Commander, the energy levels are unstable. If we get closer, we could lose the ship." Elias smiled sadly. "I already lost what mattered most. I'm not afraid of loss anymore." That night, he stood alone in the observation bay of Solara's Dawn. The wormhole shimmered in front of him, a great spiral of blue and silver, beautiful and terrifying. He touched the coin around his neck, and for the first time it glowed brighter than ever, almost alive. The light pulsed in sync with the wormhole's rhythm, and then he heard it again. Her voice, clear this time, echoing through the speakers, soft and trembling like a heartbeat made of light. "Elias, I waited. I am still here." He pressed his hand to the glass, eyes wet. "Lyra, I'm here too. I never left you." For a long moment there was silence, just the hum of energy and the beat of his heart. Then the wormhole flashed once, and a brilliant silver burst that illuminated the dark sky. The sensors went wild. "Sir, the gate is opening." He smiled faintly, whispering through his tears. "Then open it, my love." As the wormhole expanded, a faint shape began to appear inside it. Not just energy, but something more solid. A silhouette of light moving slowly forward. The crew gasped, but Elias only whispered one word, his voice breaking, "Lyra." And somewhere in that glowing storm, her voice came again, steady, warm, alive. "I am yours, human. I always was." The wormhole glowed brighter than anyone had ever seen before. The crew of Solara's Dawn stood frozen, staring as streams of silver light twisted and danced through the void. Commander Elias pressed a trembling hand against the glass of the observation deck. His heart beat painfully fast. Every memory, her voice, her smile, her sacrifice, flooded back into his mind. And then, out of the light, a shape began to form. At first, it was just a shimmer, a human-like outline made of mist and silver energy. Then it grew clearer, more solid, until Elias could see the curve of her face, the glow of her eyes, the gentle tilt of her head. "Lyra," he whispered, hardly daring to breathe. The figure floated within the wormhole's light, her body half energy, half form. Her voice came soft and broken, echoing through the speakers. "Elias, and can you hear me?" He felt tears fill his eyes. Yes, I can." The crew looked at him, unsure what to do. One of them whispered, "Sir, this isn't possible."
"She's alive?"
Elias nodded slowly. "She never died. Her body was destroyed, but her energy lived on in the gate. She became part of it." Lyra's voice trembled again like a melody carried by wind. "I was lost. For so long. The light was endless, cold, but your voice, your coin, it called me back." Elias lifted the small glowing coin hanging from his neck. "This, you could feel it?" "It was the last piece of me I touched before I became light. It held my memory, my heart." He smiled through tears. "Then take it back." He pulled the coin from his neck and pressed it against the glass. The metal began to glow brighter, responding to her presence. The ship's systems started to hum in rhythm with the pulse of the wormhole. Suddenly, a surge of light shot from the gate and wrapped around the coin, then spread across the deck, filling the air with warmth. The voice on the speakers grew stronger, clearer, almost alive again. "Elias, I remember you." He closed his eyes. "Then come home." The ship shook violently as the wormhole's energy flared. The crew shouted warnings, systems overheating, shields failing, but Elias didn't move. He stood rooted in place, his eyes locked on her. Her figure flickered, struggling between energy and matter. She was fighting to stay, to take shape again. "Elias," she whispered, "I need an anchor." He stepped closer. "Use me, my energy, my life, and take whatever you need." "No," she said softly, shaking her head. "I can't harm you." He smiled sadly. "You saved me once. Let me save you this time." He pressed his hand to the glass where her light touched. His skin burned, but he didn't care. Her glow reached out, wrapping around his hand, flowing through his body like fire and music at once. His vision blurred, but he kept whispering her name. "Lyra, come back." The light grew blinding. The crew shielded their eyes as energy waves spread through the ship. Then silence. When the light faded, Elias was on his knees, breathing hard. The deck was scorched, the air still humming with static. And standing before him, weak, glowing faintly but real, was Lyra. Her silver eyes blinked slowly as she looked down at him. Her voice trembled. "You called me home." Elias rose to his feet, barely believing what he was seeing. He reached out a shaking hand, afraid she would disappear if he touched her. But when his fingers brushed her skin, warm, real, alive, she didn't fade. She smiled through tears of light. "You kept your promise." He laughed softly, his voice breaking. "You didn't leave me a choice." They stood together, the universe shining beyond the window. Around them, the crew stared in disbelief. No one spoke. No one dared break the miracle before their eyes. Lyra leaned closer, her voice no louder than a whisper. "Elias, your hair has turned gray." He chuckled, wiping his tears. "Time does that to us humans." Her eyes softened. "You waited so long," he nodded. "I told you, Lyra. Love doesn't count time." She touched his chest gently, feeling his heartbeat under her palm. "Then this time I will not leave you." Elias took her hand, holding it firmly, this time not afraid of losing it. "Then let's see what forever really means." As Solara's dawn drifted silently near the wormhole, the stars around them shimmered brighter, as if celebrating her return. The universe had taken her once, but love, stubborn, human, impossible love, had brought her back. And as she rested her glowing head against his shoulder, whispering softly, "I am yours, human," he closed his eyes, letting the words heal every wound in his heart. This time she wasn't light, she wasn't memory, she was real. And together, they stood in the glow of eternity, two souls who had proven that even in the endless darkness of space, love could find its way home. For the first time in years, Commander Elias woke up to light, not the harsh glow of a control screen, not the empty reflection of a distant star, but the soft, living light that came from her, Lyra. She sat beside him, her silver eyes calm and warm. The glow of her skin had softened, her body now half organic, half energy, fragile but alive. When she smiled, it felt like the dawn after a long night. "How long did I sleep?" he asked quietly. 2 hours, she said with a small laugh. "Humans rest too much," he chuckled weakly. "We get tired when we fight the universe for love." She leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering, "Then rest, brave human. I will guard your dreams now." The days that followed were filled with wonder. Scientists from both species, humans and Zayari, couldn't believe what they saw. An alien who had become pure energy, returned to physical form through emotional connection. They called it the Lyra phenomenon. But Elias didn't care about the research. He cared only about her. The way she touched the cold glass of the ship's window, amazed at the stars she once watched as light. The way she learned to walk again, her steps uncertain but graceful. Every day she grew stronger. Every day they grew closer. One evening they stood together on the deck of the ship as Earth came into view, a blue jewel glowing in the dark. The sight made Lyra's eyes widen in wonder. "It's so alive," she whispered. "It looks like it breathes." Elias smiled softly. "It does. You'll like it there." When they landed, the world greeted her like a miracle. Humans gathered to see the alien who had once given her life for them. Children brought flowers. Elders bowed their heads. For the first time, the two species didn't just work together. They understood each other. Elias and Lyra stood hand in hand before the memorial garden where her name once glowed in silver. Now it shimmered beside his, connected by a single beam of light. Elias and Lyra, the bridge between worlds. She touched the glass gently. "You built this for me," she whispered. He nodded. "For us." Life slowly became peaceful. They built a small house near the ocean, away from the noise of the world. Lyra loved the sea. The rhythm of the waves reminded her of energy currents in the stars. She would sit on the sand for hours, her toes buried in the earth, whispering, "This world feels alive in every breath." Elias would watch her from the porch, smiling softly. Every moment felt unreal, a dream he never wanted to wake from. Sometimes she would hum strange melodies from her world, songs made of light, not sound. When she did, tiny motes of silver floated in the air around them. "Does it bother you?" she once asked. He shook his head.
"No, it's like the universe is singing with you," she laughed.
"Maybe it is, but time moved forward as it always does. Humans age. Energy does not." Elias's hair grew white, his hands slower. Lyra never changed. She tried to hide the pain that grew in her heart every time she looked at him. One evening he sat by the sea, watching the sunset paint the water gold. Lyra sat beside him, holding his hand. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Regret what?" "Choosing me, loving me." He smiled faintly, eyes shining with peace. "How could I regret the thing that gave me life twice?" She looked down, her voice trembling. "I will lose you again, Elias." He squeezed her hand gently. "Then lose me to time, not to fear. You once told me you wanted to understand love. This is it. Love isn't about forever. It's about now. About every heartbeat we share." Tears shimmered in her silver eyes. "Then I will remember everyone." He smiled, leaning his head on her shoulder as the sun touched the horizon. "Good," he whispered, "because wherever I go, you'll be there too." When the night came, she sat beside him under the stars. The waves whispered softly. The air was still. Elias had fallen asleep, his hand still wrapped in hers, and this time he didn't wake. Lyra didn't cry. She simply held his hand, feeling the last warmth fade, then leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking, "for teaching me what it means to live." The silver light in her body brightened until it touched the stars themselves. And then, as if the universe had been waiting, the same gentle glow that once took her away began to surround her again. She looked toward the horizon, her heart calm. "I am yours, human. Always." Her form dissolved into silver light, rising to the sky. 2 lights this time, one gold and one silver, swirling together as they vanished into the stars. Years later, travelers on the outer rim sometimes looked into the night sky and spoke of seeing 2 lights dancing together across the void, one bright and one soft. And though no one could prove it, Those who believed whispered that it was them, the human and the alien girl who chose each other for life. Their love had become a constellation, a promise written in the stars.